He didn't want to move there, Leclerc didn't want to give him more space than needed, and they touched. It's a racing incident for me. Let's start with the DNF, and shockingly, first is George Russell. He and Toto Wolff confirmed he's had some kind of issue with his car. He was losing time on the straights in comparison to Antonelli. And during the race, he had barely made it into turn 1 when he was put on the gravel by Lewis Hamilton. His weekend is awful for his title challenge, but between the early retirement and the engine issues, I just can't give him a rating. It was a DNF as well for Sergio Pérez. He was out-qualified by his teammate, but got ahead of him by the end of lap 1. Started on hard tires, then went to soft with the early safety car. So he bailed on the strategy early on, and his rear suspension bailed on him during lap 14, which made him retire from the race, a 6.5 for him. Lance Stroll ended qualifying not even 2 tenths behind Alonso, which ain't bad for him, and even managed to race ahead of him for a few laps. But ultimately, it was yet another disappointing weekend for the Aston Martin driver, and ended up retiring on lap 26 due to a problem with his gearbox. 5. Fernando Alonso was last on his last weekend waiting for the AMR 26 Evo. In Hungary, the British team will be introducing upgrades which, in theory, will have them fighting with Williams. I bet he cannot wait. Another race he won't be telling his kids about. Unremarkable. That car is just so uncompetitive, and I'm actually glad it's finally being retired. Having a team that's so far off the pace just ain't fun, apart from those initial races where nobody could believe how awful they were and we were all laughing. I'm giving him a 6 today. A bit of a nothing burger from Valtteri Bottas. He at least managed to outqualify Perez, but is it even worth mention when you just lose the position straight away during the opening lap and at no point look fast enough to take it back? Probably not. 5. Esteban Ocon went out in Q1, only the Aston Martins and Catalan were slower than him. During the race he had multiple encounters with other cars. Those weren't really his fault, and you could argue we'll never truly know his race pace and final race position thanks to them. But let's be real, he wasn't going to go anywhere, so mainly taking into account his qualifying, I'm giving him a 4. Not the best race for Carlos Sainz. Saturday went pretty well, managing to get out of Q1 while his teammate didn't, but Sunday started off all wrong with a 10th place grid penalty due to a battery problem. Had to change his front wing after being one of the drivers to hit Ocon, but despite all of that, he ended up right behind Albon, a 6 for him. Alex Albon had a shortfall in performance during qualifying. Apparently it was a car issue, that's why couldn't really properly fight to get into Q2. His race pace was nothing to write home about, especially right at the end. He couldn't keep Bearman behind. Just like Carlos, he gets a 6. Oliver Bearman had a pretty decent Belgian Grand Prix despite driving a Haas. He barely lost in qualifying to Carlos Sainz, but that didn't matter at the end because of that grid penalty the Spaniard received. He did have to overtake both Williams at the end, and he did so pretty convincingly. He found himself so low down the grid because of a puncture during the first lap. He gets a 7. Nico Hülkenberg had a disappointing weekend around Spa. Stopped at the end of Q2, but ultimately that didn't cost him or the team anything. It just cost us all precious minutes of our lives because the Q3 was delayed. Underwhelming in comparison to his teammate, he was right behind him after pitting under the virtual safety car, but ended up falling behind both Alpines and Racing Bulls, and perhaps being a bit too tough, but it's a 4 for him. Liam Lawson was out-qualified during Silverstone by Arvid Lindblad. Why am I mentioning Silverstone here? Well, whoever qualified in front that day got the upgrades for Spa, so his entire weekend has to be analyzed differently because of that. This wasn't a bad race for Lawson, all things considered, but I do feel he could have kept at least one of the Alpines behind. We had seen in previous Grand Prix, his car is more often than not faster than the rest of the midfield. To his merit, he did manage to fight with Lindblad at the beginning of the race, even if he eventually fell behind. Who knows what could have been if he had the upgrades as well. 7. The Frenchman Pierre Gasly managed to end up ahead of Colapinto during qualifying, but in the race barely lost to the Argentinian. Got little to say about the Alpine actually, the races were bang average, 7.5 for Gasly. And for Franco Colapinto it's going to be a 7.5 as well. Managed to overtake Gasly and Lawson during lap 30 and that was probably the only time during Sunday where Argentinians were happy, since they lost the World Cup final later on in the day. So yeah, a 7.5. Arvid Lindblad was sensational during qualifying, right behind the top teams, making the most out of the upgrades his car got for Spa. During the race, he was unlucky. He had already stopped when the virtual safety car was called out, and Bortoleto overtook him thanks to that. The rest of the race for him was about trying to catch up and then overtake the Brazilian, but the Audi had tyres that were a bit fresher and managed to keep Lindblad at bay. 8.5. Gabriel Bortoleto did not only have fresher tyres, but he was also having one of his best weekends since he joined Formula 1 in 2025. Qualified right behind Lindblad, managing to get into Q3 ahead of Lawson or the Alpines. Got lucky with the virtual, but as I often say, to have luck, you gotta be there in the first place. Had he gone out on Q2 like his teammate did, he might have not even have the opportunity to massively benefit from the virtual. And then he showed good race pace to keep Lindblad behind, who was looking as the fastest midfield driver and by some margin during the whole weekend, so I'm giving him a 9. Lando Norris was arguably the second fastest driver during qualifying, but he didn't have a toe like Verstappen did. His race pace was superb and actually managed to lead the race for a while since he went long during his first stint, perhaps a bit too long, because at the end of the race he couldn't catch Hadjar by just a few laps. Maybe if he hadn't had a slow stop, he could have at least caught up to him, but he did, so he couldn't. Despite the grid penalty that made him stop from P13, and that stop, his race and qualifying were great, so I'm giving him an 8. Isack Hadjar played the team game around Spa. He had a grid penalty which saw him start at the bottom of the grid, so from the beginning it was pretty obvious Red Bull were going to play the tow game. He did it beautifully, allowing Verstappen to start from the front row. In the race, he had to make up a bunch of positions and was helped by the virtual safety car, thanks to which he managed to get past Norris. He was even faster than Verstappen once he changed to hard tyres during the second stint, so overall, his pace and teamwork were excellent. 8.5. I'm not exactly sure how to rate Oscar Piastri's race. Before we get into what happened with Leclerc, he had some energy deployment issues during qualifying, which explained his deficit to the rest of the frontrunners and the fact he was closer to Lindblad than them. Now, in the clash with Leclerc, he suffered a broken floorboard, which made his pace drop severely. He had a great start, that's why he was fighting with Leclerc in the first place. During his attempted overtake, I know this ain't the most popular take, but I think he had enough space to his left to still try to overtake. He didn't want to move there, Leclerc didn't want to give him more space than needed, and they touched. It's a racing incident for me. He was unlucky, he got damaged, but it could have cost Leclerc a puncture or something like that, so we're not going to sanction depending on the outcome. I may think it's a racing incident, but the argument the FIA makes for it just doesn't make sense. Who are they to determine he wasn't going to overtake him? What kind of reasoning is that in the first place? I swear to God, they are just rage baiting us all by making up new ways to justify themselves every damn race, and they differ every single race. Piastri gets a 7 because no one really knows his pace or qualifying potential. Lewis Hamilton was the responsible for putting George Russell on the gravel during the first lap. We all saw his snap of oversteer. There's no way around that. In my opinion, if you lose control over your car and crash against someone else, I don't care if it's lap 1 or lap 135, you should get a penalty. I don't understand why he got 5 seconds instead of 10 when 10 has been the standard all throughout the season, but whatever, mate. That's the least of my concerns with the FIA at the moment. The rest of the race was excellent, especially if we take into account his crash in FP3 and the mechanic who couldn't adjust his front wing balance during the pit stop, and giving him a 7. For a moment there, it looked like one of those races where Max Verstappen manages to maximize the potential of his car. He got past Antonelli before Eau Rouge, but lost that first place on the Camel Straight. He was comfortably sitting in second place after getting past Leclerc, but got unlucky stopping just before the virtual safety car. After that, he just sat too far behind Leclerc or Antonelli and not having to worry about anyone else behind him. It's a 9 for him. Another solid weekend for Charles Leclerc. Got a mega start or mega battery deployment to get himself into the first position at the end of the Camel Strike. His Ferrari, pace-wise, was the third fastest car of the weekend, so it looked as if he was going to finish behind both Antonelli and Verstappen, but that virtual changed everything for him and the Scuderia. Thanks to it, the Monegasque managed to hold on to the lead for 11 laps before Antonelli came and overtook him, bursting Leclerc's dream of getting a second victory in a row. Still, I'm giving him a 9. 6th win of the season for Kimi Andrea Antonelli, his second best race of the season. I'll say right behind his Grand Chelem during Monaco. He lost his third place during the first lap, but then again that was more due to the energy deployment than anything else. It looked like he was going to cruise into victory, but that virtual safety car made everything more difficult for the Italian. He was actually tested during the safety car restart as well, and he solved both challenges like a champion, because Antonelli's win was a champion level win. Even when he fell behind Leclerc due to the virtual, his pace was so strong, everyone knew it was just a matter of time until he got back second place. He looked inevitable, and when he got past him, he made sure to stay ahead despite the pressure. He gets a 10. Antonelli is back on the top step of the podium after 3 races struggling, 50 points ahead of his teammate and 45 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton, proving he knows how to come back after bad results and looking more and more like the next Formula 1 world champion. That's all for today. Thank you for watching the video. Let me know what you think about it in the comments down below, and you can also follow me on my social media. Until next time.